Hello, everybody. My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is a special edition of the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. And I'm pleased to have on an NFL quarterback currently with the Lions and a former Xavier High School great who was a part of many high octane seasons and a couple championships as well. Tim Boyle. Tim, pleasure to be able to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited. Looking forward to this.
Tim, now obviously I always ask guests for the first time when they come on here how their particular sport found them. And for you, obviously football, because of where you are right now, how did the game of football find you?
It's a wonderful question. Fortunately, I grew up in Connecticut in the early 2000s. I was born in 94, but when I was really starting to get into football, it was the Tom Brady 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003. So I saw this guy, Tom Brady, up in New England, and it was a really good time to be a Patriots fan. So to be quite honest with you, he sparked a lot of my interest in football, just going to Patriots games and watching him, go win Super Bowls. I didn't really understand his story at the time. But I always wanted to be a quarterback. I always wanted to be like a Tom Brady kind of figure, and started playing flag football when I was 6. So yeah, going into my 21st year of playing football. And, I've always loved football. It's always been my first love. I joke around with my dad. I have a girlfriend, but I've always been committed in a relationship with football. It's been my first love. It's definitely love-hate at times. And the older I get, it obviously becomes more of a business. But I never try to lose sight of the fact that it's a kid's game. And I'm so incredibly lucky to play the game that I've been playing for 21 years now. Even saying that is incredible. But yeah, my dad was a football player growing up. He played a little bit in college, and he wanted to see if I wanted to go out and play. And naturally, I thankfully don't really know where I got it from. My parents argue where I got my arm from, but fortunately, I had a good arm. And over the years, I just kind of progressed into a decent quarterback. So and here I am today. I will say this: it takes an absolute village. It's not just me. This has been a culmination of a lot of people's dedication and sacrifice, and I wouldn't be here without my inner circle.
As you were growing up and you talk about the arm strength, was that the one thing that kind of really stood out as far as when you were beginning your career at the quarterback position?
It did, yeah. I was, especially when you're in youth. You don't get a lot of quarterbacks in youth who can toss the rock. It's a lot of quick game. It's a lot of hand the ball off. Maybe you throw a go ball, but we were throwing some pass concepts, and I was able to hit some receivers. And I don't really remember those days as much, the small details, but I do always remember that people thought I had a really big arm. And the older I got, I had more confidence in myself. So I think the arm strength always stood out. And fortunately, I was always accurate enough, and that's something I've been working on now since college. It's when you're more aware of where to put the ball and what kind of ball to throw. I mean, it's throwing the football really truly is an incredible art, and the position of the ball in the hand, the grip. I mean, it's just all these little minute details that I've learned over the years has been special. But yeah, thankfully, thanks to mom and dad and maybe their parents as well, I have a strong right arm. So thanks to those guys.
I know it helps a lot, right?
It does.
Now, looking at and hearing about young quarterbacks and such, and I know you talked about yourself watching Brady and kind of seeing that. It's funny because I broadcast in the NVL, but also I do as well around the state of Connecticut, and I see a lot of young quarterbacks. And the one thing that really stands out to me is that obviously the dedication, but also to the fact that the repetition. The 10, the 20, the 30,000 throws, back in even Brady's younger days, there wasn't all these camps. The coaches were not a big thing. Now they are. And you and I, because you're close to my age, so do you think going through, because in a lot of ways, our age group, our generation kind of is the first as far as seeing the coaches and the camps through and through. Does that make sense?
It does, and I think it's kind of a two-part answer. I think the recruiting has really taken off. I was kind of on the beginning stages of really heavily recruiting and all these camps, like you mentioned, but also social media. I mean, the awareness and the accessibility to all these different quarterbacks just because of social media. I mean, I'm watching a kid who's a 5-star, who's going to Tennessee, and I wouldn't know about him if it weren't for social media. And I think our generation, our age, you kind of start to see that. But yeah, I've always kind of lived by the 10,000 hour rule. And I heard that first my freshman year of college. But if you want to be a professional and truly master your craft, you have to spend at least 10,000 hours doing, your craft. And, that's mental, that's physical. And to be quite honest with you, it's a lot mental, because especially at my age, the cake is baked from a mechanic standpoint. I can tweak a few things here or there. I can distribute my weight, a little bit better here and there. But a lot of playing quarterback is mental, and not even just seeing the field mentally, but it's a lot of up and down. It's how you handle adversity, how you handle, the pressure situations, the noise, the critics, the ups, the downs. There's just so much that goes into quarterback that fortunately I've been able to do for 21 years now. So every fall that comes around, I'm ready to go play quarterback. I know what it feels like. I understand that when the game's on the line and I don't play well, everyone's going to look at me. And I've gotten used to that at a young age. And if I play really well in a championship game and we win, then I'm riding high. All my friends are loving me. But it's a roller coaster of emotions. And if you learn how to tame those and understand that at the end of the day, this beautiful life that we all have is so limited. But the fact that I get to play a game that I absolutely love, I'm so blessed. And you can't take it too seriously at times. At the end of the day, you have to realize it's a game. It's a kid's game. We're out there to have fun. And, I'm so lucky to be going into my 5th year. But yes, to answer your question, I think, all these camps, I tell all these young quarterbacks, the more you throw, go take a brother, go take a sister, go throw to a tire. Anything. The more you do something, the better your mind and your body get in sync with how to do it. And it's, and like I said, throwing the football truly is an art. So all these quarterbacks, I would recommend just the more you throw, the more you pick out a certain spot on a body, or if you're throwing to, a tire, just hitting spots, like working on your accuracy is critical. But it's definitely a new age with quarterbacks these days, and getting all these throws and these camps. And I think social media is a huge part of that as well.
I want to talk about as far as when you entered Xavier, because Xavier is for all sports. Baseball, they were just shy of getting to a championship this past season. They had a couple kids, one in particular, a quarterback. Speaking of quarterbacks, Drew Conn, if I'm getting that name correct.
Yep.
Drew Uconn. Drew. Quarterback, fantastic. I'm trying to get him on the podcast too. Also a great baseball player as well, going to Uconn. Your freshman year, not to say the expectations were to scare you by any means. I'm not saying that. But obviously there is a certain standard, like I think with any powerhouse program, where we expect this, we get this, we don't want that. Your freshman year, talk me into that. Was it kind of like an eye-opening experience for you?
It was. And thankfully I came from a really good youth program in North Branford where, we won some, championships, and I was a part of a winning culture. And some of the players that I played with in youth football, I actually ended up playing with in high school at Xavier. So there was some camaraderie. And I was close with the grade above me. And when I was in 8th grade, I stayed in touch with, the Ryan Murphys, Mike Mastriani's, from Durham Middlefield, guys I was close with. So I understood the standard. I understood that, the year above us, they were undefeated. And, the freshman class, if you don't go undefeated, that's a bad season. And the fun part about going to Xavier, especially that summer year going into our freshman year, was those workouts in the summer where you're not in school yet, but you have all these kids from around Connecticut, and you go start, working out, and you get to meet kids. And most of those guys are, my best friends to this day. And it's the standard that Coach Marion set when we got there, which was incredible. He was always that, kind of fear factor, but also would take you under his wing at the right time. But you didn't want to disappoint him. They won a state championship in 2005. So, he has this aura about him that you feel, it doesn't need to be said. You feel his standard. Going in there, I had to compete for a starting job as a freshman too. I went against a talented quarterback and Mark Bussior from Weathersfield, and we battled it out. And thankfully I got the starting job as a freshman. But we tied a game that year, and I have never been. It's probably the second most frustrating game ever, because we tied a game on a daylight savings day, and the sun went down super early. They couldn't. It was six. It was I think it was a 6-6 game, and they couldn't go into overtime because the sun was going down. It was too dark, and we didn't have lights. And I thought, we play another a few minutes, we could have won the game, but we ended up not losing. We tied the game, and we were all super frustrated. But we won all the games from that point on. But I mean, I would say the grade above us and 2 grades above us. I mean, those guys, they set the standard. I mean, Coach Marion held us to a high level. He didn't baby us at all. I mean, it was real time football, and it paid off. We won 3 state championships, and probably some of the best football years of my life.
I mean, considering who it was too. I mean, NFA, Staples, Trumbull, no slouches by any means, especially being in Double L. Double L is always competitive, and if not more competitive, as far as because of the classes and such. You speak about all the players and kind of going through that, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year. Now you started full time your senior year, but you were kind of splitting time your junior year. Take me into that, because it had to be a little bit difficult for you, because you want to be out there every single time, but at the same time, you're also trying to, as you are, and I know you are, you're a team guy. You want to do what's best for the team, because in the end, if the team wins a championship, everybody gets a ring, everybody's happy.
Yeah. Alex Pace was the starting quarterback. His senior year was my freshman year. I knew he was graduating, so there was a huge opening at the starting quarterback position, right? And Pat D'Amato was the guy the past year. He played JV as a sophomore, but at that point, I was going to be a sophomore. Pat was going to be a junior, and it was a battle. Here we go. Who's going to be the starting quarterback? Is it the young sophomore? Or is it a talented running, good runner, good passer, Pat D'Amato from Mothersfield? And, we competed that offseason and ended up splitting time sophomore and junior year. But to be quite honest with you, there was never any bad blood. We absolutely loved each other. We knew that we complemented each other well, and that teams had to prepare for both of us differently, which takes time. It takes preparation, which takes away from time. And we knew that we fed well off each other. The struggle is Pat started, and Tim, all right, you're going to go into the game. Well, if I throw an interception or Pat throws an interception, you're always kind of looking over your shoulder. Is Tim unreliable now? He made a mistake. Same thing goes for Pat. So I think that was the struggle. Was if you're not playing well, is the other guy going to go play super well and take the starting job forever? And now all of a sudden you're not playing. So fortunately that never happened. We both played extremely well, and Pat was an incredible athlete and absolutely destroyed teams and with his legs and tossing the rock, and not as much so with my legs, but definitely through the air with me. It taught me how to, like you said, it's about the team. And Coach Marion always said that it's about the team. And I was never upset with splitting time, because I knew that having Pat out there was best for the team. Mm-hmm. And the cool part for me, I think, was my junior year, they started putting Pat out there at receiver a little bit. And when I was playing quarterback, so there was he was just such a good athlete, where we just we meshed. We always had a good friendship. We always had a really good relationship on the field, off the field. It's extremely healthy. And I actually just had my youth camp at Xavier a few weeks ago, and Pat actually came to help with the quarterbacks, and was reminiscing on some good times. So quarterback is so interesting, because there's only one guy in the field. You can have 2 tight ends, 4 receivers, a couple of tackles, but quarterback, I mean, that's there's only one of those guys on the field. And the fact that he and I got along so well as that happened, there could have been bad blood, there could have been drama, but there was none of that. And it was an extremely healthy relationship. And looking back, it was awesome, because it really was a double-headed dragon, man. It was, if I wasn't playing well, Pat picked me up. And if Pat wasn't playing well, I went out there and picked him up. And that's kind of our relationship on the field. And it was beautiful.
It's funny you talk about that camp, because that's how I saw you. And then I was like, wait, hold on. I'm friends. My guy, Coach Guion. I was hold on. I need to connect. I need to see if maybe he wants to come on. Tim wants to come on. And he helped me out. And that's why you're here.
Yep. Guion's a good guy, man. Guion, the defensive specialist. He was the defensive coordinator my 4 years there, and he ran a tight ship. And we had some good defenses back then too. Walter Auger, Graham Stewart, Eric Mischke. I mean, Tommy Harrington, and there were so many guys on defense that were just lights out, getting scholarships and left and right. I mean, he had some good defenses back there, and I'm obviously happy that he got the job and right now, and he's doing a good job with those guys. But it's again, it's a standard. It's holding guys accountable. He knows what it looks like. I think that's the cool part. Coach Guion won 3 state championships in a row, and then I think 15 they won it again. And it's just the standards. He understands what it looks like.
Yep.
And I think they're on the right track to kind of get back where they were going, because Xavier football truly is and always has been a powerhouse, and we're trying to get it back to where it was.
You would never know that, there was any sort of championships with him, because like you said, he always keeps the same demeanor. He's a loving guy, but also can be hard as well. And as far as defense is concerned, I'm not shocked, because he's a big Bama guy, loves Saban, loves those dudes up front, the hogs, as I call them, on the defensive side instead of on the offensive line. So, but now I want to go to your senior year, man, because you were able to start full time. Take me into that mindset before this season, because you had a fantastic season. I mean, you threw for 24 touchdowns, over 2,500 yards, and then obviously you win a state championship. That's kind of like a given. But the fact that you had, you finally had something that you were striving for, you were wanting bad, and you had it. Did you make sure, I'm not giving this up. I'm holding on to this for dear life?
Well, yeah, and that's the fun part about it, is because the kid behind me, Joe Carbone, is an incredible athlete, and he went to go play football at Stony Brook as a quarterback, and he's the super talented guy. So now I'm looking over my shoulder of like, all right, I gotta remain, composed and doing what I've done over the past few years to kind of keep the spot. But fortunately, I was at a good position. I had a couple scholarships. I was feeling really good, and Xavier taught me how to win. Man, we came off the bus, home or away, and we knew we were going to kick ass. It was the fun part. There wasn't any guessing what was going to happen. It was a state championship, 42-14. Like, we knew we were going to go there and kick some ass. So that was the fun part. But yeah, senior year was fun. You got to think about, I'm splitting time, and then I have the keys now. And I knew what I wanted that senior year to look like. And I tried to run a tight ship, man. I wanted the sophomores, the younger classmen, to be into the games. I wanted the team to be what I thought the team should be and what it has been. And I didn't want that to slip under my reins. I think our senior class did a really good job in fighting through some adversity, because we did not have as talented as a team that we did the past 2 years. We lost a lot of guys, but we played as a team. We played to our strengths, and that senior year was special because the games that we won, the one game we lost, which is probably, it sticks with me forever, against Hand at home. There were some ups and downs in that season. Almost lost to Hill House, scored 29 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. I mean, it was just, there's so many cool moments with that senior group. But yeah, it was special to be the sole starting quarterback, and be a highly touted recruit in Connecticut and have all these eyes on me. And I had a really good season, fortunately, and ended up going to Uconn. But yeah, having the keys as a senior was extremely fun. And I made that team, being one of the captains, I made that team what I thought it should have been, and pass it down to the young guys below me. And fortunately, 2 years later, they won another one.
Now, speaking of the fact of you going to Uconn and such, and I know now with what they have with Jim Mora, and it seems like the energy at Uconn just seems to be something I have not seen for some time, as far as everybody, like, I've never seen somebody or people so excited for Uconn games as I'm seeing now. And it's been so fun. And it's great. And I think for someone like yourself who went to Uconn, obviously is a Connecticut guy, it's fantastic. You talk about the highly talented, highly touted prospect at the time. How are you able to handle that, even at the time when, this is before social media was social media? So how did you handle that mentally? Because I'm sure there were times where you want to kind of maybe feel like a little big-headed, but you couldn't, because then if you did, then that's when things start to go down really quick.
I have 2 sisters, to answer your question. They humbled me real quick, and I come from a good family. My parents understand what it means to be a good person and to be a good contributor to society, and not to be arrogant. I always pride myself on trying to downplay myself. Mm-hmm. And I always want the compliments to come from other people. I don't ever want to sit here and compliment myself and tell everyone how great I am. That's an internal, confidence thing with myself, but I never want to verbalize it. Mm-hmm. And I knew I was talented. but I never really wanted to have a big head. I kind of wanted to be under the radar. I was fairly quiet in high school, and I kind of just worked hard and
Mhm.
played football, and I wanted to get a Division I scholarship. And once those started coming in, it was kind of okay, let me relax. I can kind of be myself now. And I think that's when I kind of came out of my shell and I started having some fun. Some friendships really blossomed. But yeah, to answer your question in brief, I had two sisters who would let me know if that was ever an issue of me being a big head. They still humble me today, and I'm so thankful for those two. You know, they're my best friends. I have an older sister and a younger sister, and they check me when I need to be checked. Not that I feel like I need to be checked that often, but you know, if they feel like I'm slipping, they'll let me know, and I respect their opinion always.
It's always good to have siblings, especially like you said, having two
It,
sisters to be right on you just in case.
they will crack the whip.
Now, I want to go to the NFL side because I only have you for a couple more minutes, and I really do appreciate you coming on.
My
Being an
pleasure.
undrafted guy, really got to fight and grind and battle for everything. Kind of like what you've been doing through, at the time before you signed. You spent a couple years with Green Bay. You're now with Detroit. You've been around a lot of, Aaron Rodgers, Jared Goff currently right now, but also too the coaches as well and players too. Just kind of take me into that, man, because to be around all of that has to be a pretty cool thing.
It is, and it's honestly surreal that I played in the NFL because like, even the college career that I had, I never really thought it was going to be an easy ride for me, you know. But the fact that I'm going into year 5, and I've been able to experience so many different players and coaches. You know, I've been around the Mike McCarthy's, the Matt LaFleur's. I mean, and now the Luke Getzey, the offensive coordinator for the Bears. I mean, there's so many talented coaches. You know, it's the new head coach for the Broncos. I mean, one of my all-time favorite coaches. You know, he's just such an upbeat guy, and being around those players too, man, it's truly an art to surround yourself with good people. You know, it's there's a lot of money, there's a lot of ego in the NFL, and there are people um, who play into that, and there are people who pretend they don't have anything and keep working extremely hard. And fortunately, I had Aaron to learn from, and he's one of those guys who pretends like he has $50 in his bank account and comes in and some regular clothes and some beat up shoes, and it's nothing. He's not flashing anything. He just put his head down and he worked every day. I saw that for 3 years, and it was special to be around him. You know, I took a lot from him mentally, physically, tried to take a lot from him physically. It's tough, I'll be honest with you. But from a preparation standpoint, just being around Aaron was incredible for my development as a quarterback. You know, when I stepped in the door day 1 in Green Bay to when I left year 3, I mean, I was a completely different quarterback, physically, mentally. I mean, you got to think, surrounding yourself with a guy like Aaron Rodgers and trying to compete at his level every day of practice. I mean, it brings you, up pretty quick. And that was probably the coolest thing for me. Like you said, like Jared, and you get to see these different quarterbacks and what makes them tick, and how Jared processes the game and his mechanics and what he does mentally and what he does physically. You kind of get to pick and choose kind of what you like from other guys. And I was around, Deshaun Kaiser and Manny Wilkins, and I was around Brett Hundley for a little bit, who's still in the league, and David Blau. I mean, all these different quarterbacks, Steven Montez. There's just so many guys who I have these special relationships with, who I stay in touch with. And I think that's truly what it's about, man. Football is a beautiful sport, but at the end of the day, life is bigger than football. And I think relationships are number one. Just being able to be present in moments and share special moments with people. And, I can remember dinners and having bottles of wine with Aaron. It's just like the conversations you have, and it's the fun laughs that are special to me. And, but you get to see a whole lot of people, man. You get to see people from California, Texas, Florida, Connecticut, Michigan. There's so many walks of life, and everyone's story is different. I think that's the cool part. Everyone's got a different story, a different journey, and how they got to the NFL. And I try to talk to all my teammates and try to figure out, what have you done differently? Why are you here? I understand what I've done and why I'm here, but was it I've always been a 5-star athlete, and it's kind of been easy for me because I'm just a stud, or is it, I did this the long way, the hard way, and it's fun to understand, what makes people tick. And I think the relationships are so special, and the memories are so special. But I've been around a lot of really good players, and that's been really so much fun. And I mentioned Coach Hackett, the new head coach for the Broncos. I mean, just the moments and meetings with him, and just understanding how he sees the game, and how Matt LaFleur sees the game, and how Luke Getsy sees the game, and now how my quarterback coach, Mark Brunell, who played 19 years in the NFL, how he sees the game. There's just so many different facets that I've tried to take from all these different quarterbacks and all these different offensive minds. It's really helped me out. And I will say it's challenging every year. I think I've the past 10 years I've had 9 offenses. So that's challenging, but to be quite honest with you, it's taught me a lot about football. It's taught me a lot about concepts and the X's and O's side of things. And I've got to see a lot of different coaching styles. So I understand what suits me best. So I can, go to a Mark Brunell and say, hey, I like an XYZ. So I'm that kind of learner. We can have those conversations as adults, which is wonderful. But being around those guys, coaches, players, and even their families, and you build these special relationships with these people, and they'll last a lifetime. So I'm extremely lucky to have these people.
Tim, real quick, in about a minute and a half, if you can, I got 2 questions that were sent to me by followers that I have from Connecticut, both football players. One of them is an Xavier player. His name's Richard.
Yep.
He wants to know, what was the most memorable high school game while playing for Xavier? And then the other question is from Alex, Rocky Hill. Who was the hardest defensive player you had to go up against, and why? You have about a minute and a half if you can.
Is that high school, that second question?
Correct.
That's a wonderful question. The most memorable game was Hill House my senior year. We were down 28 points with 10 minutes left in the game. And miraculously, we came back when we scored 29 unanswered points. And we went for 2. There's probably a few seconds left in the game. Could have kicked the extra point, but we all went to the sideline and said, hey, we're going for 2. We made it this far, and handed it off to D'Angelo Berry, inside zone to the right. And he dove in for the score, and I absolutely went berserk. And one of the most memorable games I've ever played in, period. In NFL youth, I mean, that's an incredible comeback, 29 unanswered points in 10 minutes. And the most, the best player I played against.
If you want to do the NFL, maybe he may be talking NFL. Let's do NFL. How about that one?
NFL, I mean, I only had the pleasure of playing against Bobby Wagner for a few plays before he, unfortunately hurt his knee. But I could just tell the intensity and the awareness that he has. I mean, when I started against Seattle, I mean, it was incredible. It truly was. But I mean, wow, let me think about this. When I played Falcons at Atlanta, Myles Garrett probably will take the cheese there. I mean, he's pretty special. He gets on you quick. Third down, he's pinning his ears back, and it's not fun when you got Myles Garrett on that side and Jadeveon Clowney on that side, and it's third down, and they get to pin their tails and go after the quarterback. So that was a fun first start for me. But I think going against those guys was. I always watched Jadeveon Clowney. I always knew Myles Garrett was a freak, but being out there and playing against those guys, it was a rush. It really is. Those guys get on you quick, and they make you get rid of the ball fast. And it's I'd say Myles Garrett. He definitely stood out that game.
Tim, I really appreciate you coming on. This was a lot of fun. I hope I can have you again sometime, maybe during the off season, because I know you'll be busy with Detroit. But thank you again for coming on the podcast.
Chris, this was amazing, and I will definitely be on. Enjoy the conversation, and I appreciate you.
That'll wrap things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent. I'm Andre. We find them all. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and be well.